What happens when a mother's love collides with a cop's arrogance in the middle of a courtroom? That day, the air inside the Muskogee County Courthouse felt thick, like even the walls were holding their breath. The judge's gavel gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Papers rustled. Shoes squeaked against the marble floor. People whispered in hushed tones as if sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Then it came, the sound that stopped everything. The slap was so sharp it seemed to split the air in half. Every conversation died mid-sentence. The bailiff froze. Even the judge's hand stopped halfway through a motion. For a second, time itself seemed to hesitate, like the world didn't know how to move forward after what it had just seen. At the center of it all stood Danielle Mercer, a woman in her early 40s, dressed in a navy blazer, her hair pulled neatly into a bun. Her cheek burned red, her breathing shallow but steady. Her eyes, however, told another story. They were locked on the man who just struck her, a man wearing a badge. Sergeant Mark Ellison. A decorated officer, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, with the kind of face that had learned to smirk before it ever learned to smile. His hand still hung in the air, fingers stiff, eyes wide as if he himself couldn't quite believe what he'd done. For one heartbeat, the courtroom was silent. Then came the sound of papers dropping, followed by an audible gasp that rolled through the crowd like a wave. Danielle didn't cry out. She didn't stumble. She just stood there, frozen, the echo of that slap vibrating through her body. Then something inside her shifted. Her posture straightened. Her lips pressed together in a thin, calm line. Her breathing slowed, not out of fear, but out of focus. She looked at him, not as a victim, but as a woman who had finally decided she would never again bow to anyone who thought their uniform made them untouchable. Before anyone could move, before the bailiffs could react, Danielle stepped forward. Her hand shot out, catching Ellison's wrist. With a motion so fluid it looked rehearsed, she pivoted, used his weight, and sent him flying over her shoulder. The thud of his body hitting the marble floor thundered through the courtroom. Gasps erupted. Cameras flashed. Someone screamed. The judge shouted, "Order! Order in the court!" But it was too late. The damage was done. Security officers rushed forward. Some moved to restrain Danielle, others to help Ellison off the floor. But she didn't resist. Her hands trembled slightly, yet her face remained composed, eerily calm in the middle of chaos. She wasn't angry anymore. She was done being scared. That was the moment everything changed, not just for her, but for everyone who would see that video later. Because what started as a courtroom hearing for her teenage son would soon become a national headline. But to understand what led to that moment, to understand why Danielle Mercer reacted the way she did, you have to go back. Back before the slap, before the trial, before the world knew her name. Back to the quiet mornings and long nights that shaped her into the kind of woman who doesn't break, even when the system tries to make her. The life before the headlines. Before her name flooded every news outlet, Danielle Mercer was just another mother trying to survive. She lived in Columbus, Georgia, in a small brick duplex at the edge of town near the Chattahoochee River. Her life was simple, predictable, and painfully ordinary. She woke before dawn every morning, brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and dressed for work in her pressed blue scrubs. She worked as a physical therapy assistant at a downtown rehabilitation center, helping elderly patients learn how to walk again, how to lift their arms, how to stand without trembling. Every day, she told her patients the same thing. You can't rush healing. You just have to keep standing up. The irony wasn't lost on her. Because while she was helping others regain their balance, her own life was on shaky ground. Her son Marcus, 17 years old, was her whole world. A quiet, artistic kid who preferred sketchbooks to basketball courts. His teachers described him as thoughtful, reserved, respectful. He'd lost his father when he was 8, and ever since then, it had been just the two of them. Danielle worked long hours, but every night, no matter how tired she was, she made sure to have dinner with him. They'd talk about everything: school, art, life, dreams. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. That rhythm, those small, ordinary moments, broke the night Marcus got arrested. The night everything changed. It began with a protest downtown. A peaceful one. Students, teachers, parents, all gathered at the city square holding signs that read, "Justice is not a favor," and "Accountability for all." Marcus had gone with a few friends, camera in hand, eager to record the event for his art project. Danielle hadn't worried. Her son wasn't reckless. He was careful, respectful, and cautious about everything he did. But that night, the phone rang. "Ma'am," the voice on the other end said, cold and bureaucratic, "your son's been detained at the county jail. You'll need to come down." Her stomach dropped. The drive to the station was a blur of red lights and trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. When she arrived, the world seemed to shrink to the space between her and the glass divider. Marcus sat behind it, eyes red, voice shaking. "They said I resisted," he whispered, "but I didn't, Mama. I swear I didn't." Danielle pressed her palm against the glass. "I believe you, baby. I believe you." When she got home that night, she found the video. A shaky, grainy cell phone recording posted online by someone in the crowd. It showed Marcus standing still, hands raised, saying something inaudible to the officers in front of him. Then a taller cop stepped forward, fast, aggressive, and grabbed him. Marcus flinched instinctively, and within seconds, that same officer had slammed him to the ground. That officer was Sergeant Mark Ellison. The charge? Resisting arrest and disorderly conduct. It was a lie. A neat, typed-up version of reality that erased everything the video showed. The weight of injustice. Danielle didn't sleep that night. Or the next one. Or the one after that. Her paychecks went straight into legal fees. She stopped buying lunch, stopped turning on the heater at night to save money. Her kitchen table turned into a war zone, folders, flash drives, statements spread everywhere. She watched that video hundreds of times, frame by frame, until she knew every flicker of movement, every second of injustice burned into her brain. Neighbors told her she was strong. "You got this, Danielle," they'd say. She'd smile, nod, thank them. But inside, she was crumbling. Still, something in her refused to quit. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was both. She found a lawyer, Greg Langford, a calm, sharp-minded man known for taking cases most attorneys avoided. When she walked into his office, he was already familiar with Ellison's name. "I've seen this officer's record," he told her, flipping through files. "Complaints. Excessive force. Nothing ever sticks." "Then we'll make it stick this time," Danielle said quietly. Greg looked at her for a long moment. "You've got fight in you, Mrs. Mercer. That's good. You'll need it." And fight she did. Every night after work, she gathered evidence, contacted witnesses, and replayed that same dreadful video. Each time she watched it, her determination hardened. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore, it was about every mother who'd been told to stay silent when her child was wronged. By the time the hearing date arrived, Danielle wasn't just a mother seeking justice. She was a woman on a mission. The calm before the storm. The courthouse in Monroe County, Georgia, looked harmless enough: white columns, tall windows, and polished wooden benches. But Danielle knew better. Inside those walls, truth often had to fight for air. That morning, she dressed carefully: navy blazer, white blouse, minimal jewelry. She looked at herself in the mirror before leaving, tired eyes, calm face. "You've got this," she whispered to her reflection. "You've been strong your whole life." Marcus sat beside her in the car, clutching her hand. "You sure you're ready, Mom?" She smiled faintly. Ready or not, baby, it's time. Inside the courtroom, the air smelled like polish and tension. On the other side of the aisle sat Ellison, uniform pressed, chest puffed, eyes sharp. The same eyes that had looked down on Marcus that day at the protest. The same smirk that made Danielle's stomach twist. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Court was now in session. Her lawyer leaned in. Remember what we talked about. Calm and clear. Don't let them see you angry. I'll show them the truth, she whispered. That's all. But the truth, as she was about to learn, had a way of igniting tempers in rooms built to suppress them. The courtroom clock ticked louder than it should have. Each second seemed to echo through the silence like a heartbeat. Danielle sat straight in her chair beside her attorney, hands folded neatly in her lap, but her knuckles were pale from how hard she pressed them together. Across the aisle, Sergeant Mark Ellison adjusted his collar and leaned back in his seat, oozing confidence. His attorney, a gray-haired man in a dark suit, whispered something in his ear. Ellison smirked and nodded. That smirk again. The same one that had haunted Danielle's nights. The hearing was supposed to be simple, a review of the video evidence and witness statements to determine whether Marcus had resisted arrest. But everyone in that room knew the truth, this wasn't just about the charges. It was about pride, power, and a system that didn't like being challenged. The judge, Honorable Rebecca Caldwell, was a woman in her late 50s with a reputation for fairness, but also for impatience. Her voice was measured, calm, but every word carried weight. Let's begin, she said, tapping her pen. Greg Langford, Danielle's lawyer, stood first. Your Honor, we intend to show that my client's son, Marcus Mercer, was the victim of excessive force by Officer Ellison during what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. We have video evidence and eyewitness testimony. Ellison's lawyer interrupted smoothly. Objection. The defense is characterizing my client before presenting evidence. Judge Caldwell raised a brow. Noted. Proceed carefully, Mr. Langford. Danielle exhaled slowly. She could feel Marcus trembling beside her. She placed her hand gently over his. We'll be okay, she whispered. Then the video played. The courtroom dimmed slightly as the monitor flickered on. The footage, though grainy, was painfully clear. It showed Marcus standing quietly near a group of students, camera in hand. Officers in riot gear formed a line. Someone shouted. And then, as the crowd began to disperse, Ellison lunged forward, grabbing Marcus by the arm. The boy's voice echoed faintly through the speakers, I'm not resisting. Then came the shove. The ground. The knee pressing him down. When the lights came back up, silence filled the room again. Danielle kept her eyes on Ellison. His expression hadn't changed. Not guilt. Not shame. Just indifference. Greg stepped forward. Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself. There was no aggression from Marcus. He posed no threat. The officer's actions were unjustified. Ellison's attorney stood. Your Honor, the video is incomplete. It does not show the full context. Officer Ellison was responding to chaos. He made a split-second decision in a high-pressure situation. The judge looked at Ellison. Sergeant, you may take the stand. The hearing continued, but something in the room had shifted. Danielle sat frozen, her pulse roaring in her ears. Ellison leaned toward his lawyer, whispering something, a ghost of that same smirk creeping back. Then came the moment. As the session ended and the judge stood to adjourn, Danielle rose from her seat. She turned to gather her things when she heard Ellison mutter, just loud enough for her to catch it. Should have taught your boy to listen. Something inside her snapped. She turned, face flushed, eyes blazing. What did you just say? The bailiff stepped forward. Ma'am, please. But Ellison, puffed with arrogance, stood taller. You heard me. Maybe if you people learned some respect, we wouldn't be here. That was it. Danielle stepped forward, trembling but unafraid. You don't get to talk about my son like that. He smirked again. Lady, sit down before you make it worse for yourself. Then it happened. In front of everyone, the judge, the lawyers, the crowd, he raised his hand. Not fast, not full force, but enough. Enough to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. The slap cracked through the courtroom like thunder.